Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. My name is Greg Lahl. I'm pastor at First Christian Church, Kittery Point. And we've been going through on Tuesdays the blessings that are in the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5. And this morning we come to verse 9 where Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And boy, how we need peacemakers these days, right? There is so much unrest, so much conflict, so much division between people in our nation, in our families, in our churches. And we desperately need peacemakers who will step in between people who are focused more on not getting their own way, but on helping those who are in conflict to find peace. Now, Jesus, one of the names for Jesus is the Prince of Peace. He is the Prince of Peace. And yet, even Jesus said, "I have not come to bring peace, but a sword," to set people against each other. The enemies will be within your own family, he said. And we've found that to be true. And Jesus was speaking about the gospel and how the gospel it kind of falls as the truth in between people, and some people accept it and find peace in that, and other people do not. They oppose God. And so peace is not necessarily the absence of conflict. Sometimes conflict is impossible to remove. It doesn't necessarily either mean that we always agree with each other, that we never disagree. Conflict simply means the job of the peacemaker is to step in between those who are in conflict and to bring them to the place of peace, help them to get out of conflict. Not always possible, but Jesus calls us to be peacemakers. Let me give you one example. In the church in Philippi, the Apostle Paul in chapter 4 of that book asks the church for their help because two women in the church named Euodia and Syntyche just could not get along. And so Paul reaches out to the church, says, help these women. They were good women. They were both valuable parts of the church, had served beside each other, but for some reason that we don't know, they just could not get along. And so Paul asks for peacemakers to rise up in the church. And so as the children of God, we all have the tools to be peacemakers. And by far the most important tool is prayer. Prayer is the strongest weapon we have in the work of making peace. And like with most things, peacemaking should begin at home. And so if your family is divided, if there are problems with relationships within your family, then that is the place to begin. First with prayer. Pray for God's wisdom for you to know how you might be a peacemaker. Pray for peace. Pray for the individuals involved. And God will give you wisdom in that. God wants us to be peacemakers, to find opportunities to bring about the peace that only Christ can bring. And God has led us by example in the area of peacemaking. The promise in this beatitude is that they will be called, peacemakers, will be called the children of God, like father, like son and daughter. You see, God is hostile toward the sinner and is justified to be hostile toward the sinner. There's a conflict there because God is holy and he cannot look upon sin. And so the Apostle Paul describes a dividing wall of hostility that exists between God and the sinner. And yet Jesus, the Prince of Peace, was the peacemaker who came between the two parties, his Father, the holy God, and the sinner, and he laid down his life and invested himself in bringing about peace through the blood of his cross. And so that forever is the ultimate example of being a peacemaker. And so I encourage you today to invest some time and energy in prayer in bringing about peace between people who are at conflict. Not always possible, but God delights in the peacemaker. And it's one way to show yourself to be a child of God. God bless you.